تنقله عبر الحدود. في أسئلة مهمة يجب أن تسأل. By the way, I would take advantage of this question to address this issue in English. 2 years ago, certain council members pressed for the adoption of Resolution 2165. You may remember this resolution, which established the so-called humanitarian corridors, two on our border with Turkey and two with our border, on our border with Jordan, to cross-border delivery of humanitarian assistance without consulting with the Syrian government. So they did the same mistake 2 years ago. And we told them at that day, don't do it because these crossing border established specifically to deliver humanitarian assistance will be used by the Turkish government to deliver weapons to the terrorists. They didn't listen to us until Erdogan himself put 18 customs officers and 4 judges in jail in Turkey because they disclosed that in one of these convoys sent by the Turkish government as a humanitarian assistance, there were no milk but weapons. So he put everybody in jail. This is exactly what we said when they were talking to us about establishing these cross-border operations, crossing borders. They didn't listen. And now they want to repeat the same mistake by talking about, you know what, the best way to help the Syrians is by airdropping the assistance. And we don't care about the Syrian government. We will neglect the Syrian government role. As if somebody could airdrop assistance to the French people in Paris without consulting with the French government. Would that be okay? Would that be doable? Can we interfere in the Saudi affairs and drop assistance to the people in the Qataif, in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia, for humanitarian reasons, without consulting with the Saudi government?
We have a clarification on that.
Hold on. The reality today is that some armed terrorist groups are misusing those border crossings to smuggle arms and weapons, including chemical weapons. Chemical weapons. We said it when they raised this issue in 2013. The same problem. They prefabricated this issue to harm the Syrian government and oblige President Obama to cross the red line, if you remember, which is attacking my country, bombing Syria. So somebody was doing his best to trigger this American aggression against Syria. And we all know nowadays who did it. Go back to this very important French book entitled Les Chemins de Damas, The Roads to Damascus, written by Georges Malbruno and his colleague. He describes exactly what happened in 2013 in the suburbs of Damascus. The former French Minister for Foreign Affairs is behind the use of chemical weapons in the suburbs of Damascus in August 2013. Hold on, please. Hold your horses. So please, when we look into an important issue, we need to be informed appropriately. We need to read, not only listen. We need to read, to search, to consult. When the terrorists used the chemical weapons at Khan al-Asal, at the beginning of the story, Khan al-Asal in Aleppo, I went myself to the Secretary General a couple hours after this incident took place, and I asked him to provide to the Syrian government assistance in whether a chemical attack took place or not, to identifying the identity of those who did it. He asked me to consult, to give him some time to consult with the same guys who are raising the concern of the so-called humanitarian assistance, the same influential guys in the council. A couple hours later, he called on me and said, Ambassador, we will help you, we will assist you in searching whether the chemical weapon was used or not in Khan al-Asr. But I will not be able to identify the perpetrators. They don't want to identify the perpetrators from the day one. From the day one, they refused to help us in identifying the identity of those who perpetrated this horrible crime in Khan al-Asr.
Ambassador, may I ask a point of clarification now?
In both cases, those council members aim at violating the Syrian sovereignty and to undermine the effective role of the Syrian government in delivering humanitarian assistance in an attempt to demonize the government. This is why some of them calls the Syrian government Syrian regime or the Assad regime. It is funny to hear that from people who are in charge of maintaining the provisions of the Charter, meaning respect of sovereignty of member states. To demonize the government and to politicize the humanitarian situation in Syria. If those states were keen on the well-being of the Syrian people, they would have exerted genuine efforts to stop the flow of terrorists into the country and to assist in reaching a Syrian-led political solution to the crisis, instead of supporting certain Arab and regional parties that attempt to sabotage the political process in its entirety. I'm an eyewitness of what I'm saying. You know that I'm heading the Syrian delegation to the Geneva talks. 3 times, every time we arrived to Geneva, the first round, second round, and third round, every time we arrived to Geneva, the day after, the Saudi group, they call it the Riyadh group, sulked, and left Geneva. They didn't want to engage in any indirect talks from the day one. Round 1, they sulked. Round 2, they sulked. Round 3, they sulked. And every time they prefabricated a pretext to justify their behavior, provocative and irresponsible behavior. Of course, they are not the ones to be blamed. The ones to be blamed are the Saudis, the Turks, and the Qataris.
Ambassador, I've been holding my horses. Could I possibly ask a question of clarification? Yeah. The UN says it's going to ask your government on Sunday to start air delivery of aid. Are you going to allow that? Yes or no would be nice if you could tell us.
Without being asked by anybody, we have established, as I told you, a humanitarian responsive plan which lasts for 6 months. Now we are implementing the 7th humanitarian responsive plan with the UN. This is not a plan elaborated by the Syrian government exclusively. This is a plan that we established jointly with the UN staff in Damascus. So there is no need to ask us to do anything for alleviating the suffering of our people in terms of humanitarian assistance.
So no to airdrops, is that what you're saying? I'm just trying to be clear.
No, I'm talking about all kinds of scenarios that may, cross your mind. I'm talking about the principle. The principle, anybody who has concerns with regard the humanitarian situation in Syria should go through one channel called the Syrian government. Nobody can ignore the role of the Syrian government in addressing anything, politically, humanitarianly speaking, anything.
They are going to ask the Syrian government on Sunday. Are you going to say yes?
No, this is not the issue. This is, the way. Hold on. This is not your role. This is not your turn.
You are continuing to use
the issue you are raising. You are a troublemaker, my friend. The issue you are talking about is not about yes or no. The issue is so important. You need to understand what's going with regard this issue in its holistically, in its panoramic dimension, in its entirety, as we say. The Syrian government has been engaged with the UN for years in delivering a humanitarian aid and a humanitarian assistance, not only to the peaceful areas, the government-controlled areas, but also to the restive areas, to the hard-to-reach areas. People would have died by millions if there is no food and medical supplies. Who could imagine for a second that these millions of Syrians are still surviving in spite of being besieged by their own governments? This is wrong. The imagination is wrong. The information given to you is wrong. Yesterday, we provided dozens of trucks to Daraya and Ma'addami and other. I didn't go into details because it might take long time. Of course, you will not see pictures on Al Jazeera. They will not show these pictures. They will not show that on Al Arabiya. They will not show that on CNN, on France 24. They will not show you that because they are part of the problem. Your channel is part of the problem from the beginning. What we are saying is that when we make our statement in the Council, please listen to what we say too. We are a partner, whether some people in the Council like it or not. We are the main interlocutor in the country. You cannot do whatever you want without consulting and coordinating with the Syrian government. We are not Somalia. Syria is Syria. Thank you so much.